Cool. Hi, I am your host, Jacob Pro. We got your mom's favorite little leaguer and local Pogue, Hunter Malone. And we got with us owner of Pure Sweat Basketball, Drew Hanlen. He's an NBA trainer. He's trained some great basketball players such as Bradley Beal, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, and the list can continue on. Appreciate you coming on the show and talking to us today.
Yeah, no doubt. No, I'm excited to join you guys.
So I just want to open up and just talk to the people about your background, because I'm actually from St. Louis and I've actually heard your story a little bit, how you started in high school and trained. So just walk us through like how you got started and where you are today.
Yeah, so the way I started was actually very random. I was a player in high school that really was known for my hard work. I used to wake up before school and shoot 1,000 shots every morning before school. So I'd wake up at 4:59 a.m., meet my high school principal at the gym at 5:15, and shoot 1,000 3-pointers every morning. And so, that gave me a good, kind of reputation around St. Louis that I was a hard worker. And one day I was working out at a 3-court facility, and there were 2 games going on, and I was on the 3rd court by myself working out hard. And a parent from court 2, George Baker, came over, and when I had a little break in the action of my workout, he put his arm on my back, kind of scared me a little bit, and was like, "Listen, I've never seen somebody work as hard as you." He's like, "Can I pay you $20 to put my son Matt through a workout?" And I was 16, 17 years old at the time, and I was like, somebody's gonna pay me $20, an hour? Like, think about that. As a high school kid, $20 an hour is like $1 million salary. So, so that's how my training career started. And then I started working out a lot of other local players in St. Louis. One of those players was Brad Beal. Brad went from 8 points a game as a freshman to 24 points a game as a sophomore. It was pretty cool. I won a state championship in 2008, my senior year in high school. And then Brad won the next year in 2009 as a sophomore in high school. And so Brad's transformation really kind of credited kind of everything that I was doing as a trainer. A lot of people saw his results, some of the other results of some of the other players that I was working out with around town. And, the rest is history. And then Brad, being from Chaminade, gave me a chance to start working with David Lee when I was still in college. So I was maybe a freshman or sophomore in college. And David Lee, I had been asking my AAU coach. We all played for the same AAU team, and now actually Brad sponsors the team. But back in the day, it was called the St. Louis Eagles, and we all played for the St. Louis Eagles. And so I was kind of, joking around with one of the AAU coaches, like, "Yo, listen, David needs me, man. I'm telling you, he needs me." And the AAU coach was like, "What does an NBA All-Star need, a college basketball player for?" And I was like, "I promise you, I can help him out." And David gave me a chance, and I didn't know this at the time, but David had texted me. I was in Nashville because Belmont, where I played college ball, is in Nashville. David had texted me and was like, "Yo, what's up? It's D. Lee. I'd love to get some work in with you this summer." And I was like, it was like one of those moments, how when guys like sometimes are like, "All right, don't text a cute girl fast enough, like give her a second, like be cool." I had one of those moments with D. Lee. I was kind of like, "All right, don't reply right away. Give it a second, And I replied back. I was like, "Yeah, let's do it, man." I was like, "I'd love to help you out." I was like, "When do you want to get in the gym?" And he was like, "How does tomorrow work?" I'm in Nashville. I'm like, "Oh, man, I'm in Nashville." Like, I was getting ready. John Jenkins, who played at Vanderbilt, was getting him ready for Team USA. And I was like, "Perfect." And he's like, "Perfect. I'll see you at 8 a.m. tomorrow." So I pack up my car, drive to St. Louis, spent all night studying his film. I didn't actually sleep that day. And I got to the gym at like 7 a.m. to make sure I could, mop down the floors. So the floors were squeaky at the Shrewsbury City Center. So, that's kind of my story, and the rest is history. Once guys started getting results, everybody else wanted the same Kool-Aid, and the rest is just word of mouth.
That's awesome to hear. It's just amazing how you went from that, and everybody's just wanted to just work with you now. It's amazing. Hunter, you want to open up with your question?
Yeah, I was going to go with, take me through the recruiting process and how you made your final decision to go to Belmont.
Yeah, so for me, it was actually weird. It was one of those things that when you're in high school, you always think you're going to go to some huge school. You think you're going to go to the Dukes and the North Carolinas and the Kentuckys of the world. And then there's like a piece of humble pie that's thrown at you when you start getting real offers. You know what I mean? Because for those of you guys that haven't been recruited, what happens is, as a eighth grader was when I first got my first recruiting letter, but it wasn't a real recruiting letter. It was like one of those generic ones where they basically were like, hey, we noticed that you're one of the top players, or you're going to these top exposure camps. So we're just going to throw a dart at the dartboard early, so that way, if you turn out to be really good, we can say we were in there early. So you don't realize who's really recruiting you until you start getting real offers. And so early on in the process, I'm getting all these high majors, and I'm like, one of the better players in St. Louis and Missouri. So I'm like, I mean, why wouldn't they want me? I'm dominating everybody else. Like, why wouldn't they want me? And then I started getting offers, and there were some high majors that were recruiting me and very interested. But I started realizing, like, the best fit for me is not necessarily only basketball. So what I was looking at were three things. I wanted to know, number one, what school was going to benefit me, not just for 4 years, like not just enjoy my 4 years of college, but what was going to benefit me for 40 years after college. Number two, what school had the best people, meaning like players, coaches, administration, teachers that I thought really fit who I was as a person, because I was going to spend, the next 4 years of my life with them 85 to 95% of the time. Plus afterwards, those are going to be, like an extended family of mine. And then the third thing was, does their basketball program fit me? And so, funny story about Belmont, when Belmont called me to recruit me, their head coach, Coach Bird, who I love, he was super country. And so when he left me a voicemail, I couldn't even really understand him all the way. Hey, Drew, how are you? I'm Coach Bird. So I was like, all right, I couldn't understand him all the way, and I had never really heard of Belmont. So that was one of those things where, as like a cocky high school kid, I'm like, I've never even heard of Belmont. I'm not going to Belmont. So I didn't even return their call. And then I remember Casey Alexander, who's now the head coach there. He was the associate head coach when I was there. He called me and was like, hey, listen, Drew, we've been to the NCAA tournament, the last 2 years, and, we're really building this program to where we think it's going to be, and told me more about the history of it. But then he really spoke to me when he was like, I really think that this would fit you as a person, because our entrepreneurship program is really, really good and really strong. And I was already building Pure Sweat in high school. I wrote a book my junior year in high school. And so I knew what I wanted to do afterwards. And he was like, and I really think that you would fit in with the culture that we've established, the people, the administration staff, the support, everybody. I think you'd really like them. And so he really spoke to me on the three things I was looking for. And so I was like, all right, I'll give him a call back. And so I did my research on them. I was like, wow, they have, dominated at the mid-major level, and they had been sneaking in the NCAA tournament. But at that time, they were like the 15 seed that would get smacked, or the 16 seed that would get smacked in the first round. And then I gave them a chance. I went on a visit with my mom, fell in love with the campus, fell in love with the people. And while it wasn't the biggest school that offered me, it was the best fit. And so I remember I canceled my other visits. I had taken a couple of visits. I had visited Penn, which was the best, business school in the country, Wharton School of Business. And I loved that, but I didn't feel like I fit in as much with the people. Like, I just love the people at Belmont a lot. So Penn was one of the schools I had visited. I had obviously been to Mizzou a million times on unofficial visits. And my dad really wanted me to go to Mizzou because he was a Missouri graduate. I went to some other schools, but once I went there, I was just like, this is home. And I think the thing that was pretty cool for me was my senior year, my math teacher, Mr. Dunn, he was a huge Maryland basketball fan. And so my senior year in high school, Duke is playing Belmont in the first round of the NCAA tournament. So he says, you know what, I'm a Maryland fan. I hate Duke. Let's all get together and cheer on Belmont against Duke. And so my entire, my whole graduating class went over to my math teacher's house, and we're watching the game. And at the beginning of the game, everyone's like, this is going to get ugly quick. And if you guys don't know,
it didn't get
Belmont lost by one. and it was a last-second layup where it was like a charge, non-call that, like, you know, Duke always gets those calls. I always give Jason Tatum and John Shire trouble because, you know, Duke always gets a few extra points for the refs. But, you know, they lost by one, and I remember thinking, like, oh, wow, man, that was the first time I was like, I made the right choice. Like, this team's right there. They're on the edge. And so, you know, I got to play in 2 NCAA tournaments my junior and senior year. And, you know, we won 3 conference tournaments. We lost one year. We got upset. And if you guys know about the mid-major teams, a lot of times if you lose your conference, you don't get 2 bids. Last year was actually the first year that, you know, Belmont got an at-large bid. They lost in the championship to Murray, but then they ended up getting an at-large bid. But, yeah, we didn't get one of my years, my sophomore year when we won. But, yeah, it was a fun experience. We actually played Duke my senior year and lost at Cameron by 1 point. So it was like a repeat. This time they banked in a 3 with late in the shot clock to beat us. But, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things as a kid from St. Louis, as a kid from anywhere, you dream about the Duke-North Carolina rivalries and to be able to play at Duke opening night. Coach K had 900 wins on ESPN. It's just one of those fun moments that, you know, I'll never forget.
Yeah. We're from mid-major school at University of North Florida. And, you know, all of our talk all season was, it's either us or Liberty, us or Liberty. We ended up tying them for the regular season championship. And then we get to the semis, and the guy who averaged, I think, like 8 points a game dropped 25 out of nowhere. He was killing us in the mid-range game, and then the final seconds he came in, pulled up, banked in a mid-range from the free throw line, and then our coach had a timeout left with about 3 seconds left, and he decided not to call that timeout, let the play run out, and lost by 2.
It's one of those things. And I know you're a coach, so I don't know if you guys know this, but Belmont was in the Atlantic Sun and North Florida was in the Atlantic Sun. I was there. And so Coach Driscoll, unbelievable guy. One of those guys that it was funny because when I was playing, we were obviously competing against them. And at the time, he had inherited a program that North Florida was like, we used to go in and beat them by 40 when he inherited them. You know what I mean? So it was it was at the start where he was starting to, you know, make them who they are now and build a kind of a new culture. And I remember him always pulling me after the games and talking to me. And he would even say, hey, like, you know, let's talk hoops, because he was just such a basketball junkie. So I still text with him here and there throughout the season. And, I mean, literally an unbelievable guy.
Yeah, we had him on the show, I think, in May. And, man, we asked him, I think, a couple questions where we realized, like, we were texting our group and we're like, this is going to be a long interview because Driscoll loved it.
He was really easy to talk to. I think that interview was like an hour and a half, and it was shot for like 20, 30 minutes. Like, and he was just telling us story after story, and it was really cool. Like, you could sit there all day and talk to him.
Yeah, he's a really good dude and really sharp basketball mind. I think a lot of people don't realize in college basketball, to take a program over that is struggling, it really takes a long time to really fix it around, unless you're one of those high major schools and get lucky with like one of those one and done players that can really impact your program. But because what you have to do is you have to chip away, because there's people like me that were in high school that maybe look at your past and they say, I'm not going to give you a chance because I've seen what you've done before. And so even if it's a new coach, they really have to kind of almost willfully kind of like, you know, get a player or two to give them a chance so that they can change that program. And that's exactly what he did. But it's hard just because you're competing with, you know, schools that have long histories and that, you know, are going to win. And as kids in high school, all you want to do is you want to win games. You want to play in the NCAA tournament. At the mid-major level, that's what most kids look at. You know, for me, I was looking a little more long-term. I was looking at academics, you know, I was looking at the people, and I was looking at basketball. But most kids in my shoes, they're just saying, what school is going to give me the best chance to make the NCAA tournament and to play, you know, professional basketball, whether it's NBA or overseas. And so if you don't have a history of sending players overseas, if you don't have a history of sending players to the NBA, if you don't have a history of winning championships and playing in the NCAA tournament, it's hard to convince players, hey, you can be that guy that transforms our program, just because they don't see the immediate satisfaction that maybe some of the other schools offer.
Yeah. I have a question. So what made you, obviously you said you started Pure Sweat in high school. How did you know that you wanted to stick with the training aspect rather than become a coach of some sort in either collegiate or the professional level?
Here's something that a lot of people like don't know about me. I like now, I don't love basketball. At the time, I loved basketball and I love
Mm-hmm.
helping people. Now, I just love helping people. Basketball just happens to be my platform to help people. But that's the true reason why. Because when I'm training a player, they fly me in. They take care of me. They really want to work with me. Whereas when you're on a coaching staff, it's kind of like the opposite. It's like the coach is asking them to work with, the player, and the coach they has to work with the player, etc. So there's a different kind of openness. There's a different relationship you get, and the relationship that I have with my players is beyond just a player. It's like more as a person than a player, and that allows us to get the trust up that we need to get the results that we want. So for me, it's always just been about helping people, man. And so as a coach, I think you can help people out a ton, but it's just you're restricted to the players that are on your team. And whereas for me, I've been able to travel the world. Like last year, I think I worked with, close to like 20,000 kids worldwide. I mean, that impact is just so heavy. And that doesn't include all the people that I've talked to online through social media now, how poppin' social media is. And then, I know that a lot of people, will kind of pat me on the back for the Joel Embiid and Brad Beal and Jason Tatum and Zach LaVine and, all the list goes on for all the players that I've worked with that are really good. But like the guys that I take the most pride in are guys like Myers Leonard, who was almost out of the NBA. And, we turned his game around. Now he's starting for the Miami Heat. But more importantly, he's come out and admit, which is why I'm comfortable sharing this. He was depressed when he met me. And his wife was depressed when he met me. And I didn't even know about his wife, and he didn't even know about his wife. But once we helped him get through his depression, his wife opened up and said, "Hey, just so you know, I've been listening to everything that you and Drew have been doing." And then she and her, her and him worked together. And now they're both in such a positive place that that brings a smile to me, because to see how great of a couple they are and to see how much they empower each other now, and to say, I had just a small part in it, but the fact that I was able to nudge just enough to get them to kind of really explore that aspect of life instead of just aspects of his game, that's the cool stuff to me. So, and I think there's a lot of players that I won't talk about because they haven't publicly came out, but those are my biggest success stories, is when I'm able to help a guy get over depression and get through kind of a positive mindset that allows them to live the life that they should be living.
So you've touched upon how you wanted to go to Belmont for academics. How important was it for you to become a 3-time academic all-conference?
0. And here's the crazy thing. I actually was speaking. So I speak to a lot of universities and their business departments and stuff like that. And I was at Belmont one time and I got asked a question from an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur said, "Hey, listen," and this is with every business student at Belmont. And they're like, "Hey, listen, I'm in a position where I'm like you. I have a company in college. I'm a sophomore in college. And, right now they were making like millions of dollars. They're like, low 7 figures. And what would you do if you were me as far as the balancing act?" I was like, "Drop out for sure." And they're like, every professor was like, "What? We brought you here to speak about." And I go, "You know what?" I go, "You need to do what's best for you." And so while you can come back and get your education, or while you can pick, little classes that'll help you get better, you don't need to be in social studies class if you're trying to run a multi-million-dollar business. Like, go all in, full steam, get the momentum you need, take action so that you can get the results that you want. So in my opinion, the reason that I did well in school was because I was a very disciplined person. And so I think school is something you can figure out. Like, I don't think it's just the smart people that are getting A's. I think it's people that figure out, like, I was always very open with my teachers. I was always communicating. If I needed help, I asked for help. If I, in class, I was paying attention. So they respected me enough that if I was struggling with something, they wanted to help me out. Number 2, I just did the work. So if they gave me work, I did the work on time, every time, thoroughly. Like, I wasn't going to do something kind of halfway. But there were times, and this is the crazy thing, I think I graduated Belmont with a 3.7 something, 3.75, 3.71. I don't know what it was exactly. But there were classes where, like my entrepreneurship class, I was very close with Dr. Cornwall, who ran our whole program. And I remember there was a final paper, and he was like, this is my senior year. And so we had already finished the NCAA tournament. I was full on running pre-draft for Brad Beal. Who else was in that 2012? John Jenkins, Festus Ezeli. I had a bunch of other guys in the 2012 draft. And so he was like, listen, Drew, you'll get an A if you just turn in this assignment, and you will get like a C+ if you don't turn in the assignment. And the assignment was going to take me like a week to do. And I was like, that's fine. I'll take the C+. And he was like, well, no, you all you have to do is turn it in. And I was like, you don't understand. Like, I'm not going to get defined by my grades or my academics. I'm going to be defined by what I do in the world, like the impact that I have and the lives that I change. And he was like, all right, can you at least just do enough where I can give you a B? Like, I don't want to have a C on you, because I had never gotten any C's. And so I was just very open. I would tell, if I was in world history class or whatever, I would tell my professor, hey, listen, I respect you, so I want to be open with you. Unless you can tell me how this is going to benefit my career as a basketball skills coach and as a life coach, I'm just not going to put the time and energy that I need to in this class. But I will, out of respect to you, I'll always pay attention. I'll always be present. I'll always do enough work to get a good grade, because I want, to make sure that I don't bring my basketball team GPA down. I want to raise it. So I think it was more of me just being very aware of who I was as a person, and that respect. Most people don't tell their teachers, like, hey, listen, I'm just letting you know this class doesn't benefit me at all. But it was in a respectful way, and it wasn't a, hey, listen, I understand how you really appreciate all the thorough knowledge about World War or whatever, but that's just not who I am, and it's not going to benefit me in the direct, you know what I mean? And so while they would try to convince me, be more well-rounded, I was one of those people like, listen, well-rounded is not the key to my success. It's being narrow focused on one thing, getting great at that thing, and then using that as kind of the stem, and then branching off in different avenues so that I have, multiple revenue streams and multiple ways to impact, people around the world. And so once we had that open conversation, I think there was a respect level that was there that allowed me to really work with my teachers and, get good grades while still spending a lot of time on my business and my game.
That's awesome to hear. So as I looked up on your website and I follow you on Instagram, you've been promoting the new courses that you just put up. How long did that take for you to build and implement to put into Pure Sweat now?
You're saying the new school?
Yeah, the new schools.
So it's been a dream of mine. I've always wondered why college coaches and why NBA coaches and why people that do what I do, why couldn't they go to school and actually learn about what they're going to do? And so the thing that really made me kick it off was, so when in high school, I wrote a book that was just a little drill book, but it started kind of my curriculum. In college, I posted on Instagram the other day, I wrote an 850-page book when I was in college. I never published the book because I didn't want to give away my quote-unquote secrets. And so I kept expanding that book, where today it's over 2,400 pages. And I was like, you know what? I got to the point in my career where I really want to give back and help the future coaches, because it also helps the players. And so I see so much garbage out there when it comes to basketball training, people that look like they're in the circus out there, and trainers that, people trust, but they really don't know what they're doing. And so I was like, you know what? While I could blame the parent for picking a bad trainer, I could blame the kid for not understanding that it was bad training. I could blame the trainer for doing clown stuff. I was like, really, I've got to look at myself and say, instead of putting blame on people, what can I do to help change this narrative? And it really started with, if I can help trainers learn what to actually do, then the parents or players won't have to adjust what they're doing, because they might not know better. So all I got to do is impact the trainers, impact the coaches, and then we can really grow together. And so, the first step was releasing this virtual basketball school, which allows people to learn about ball handling and pin downs and ball screens and post moves, just like they would math, science, and social studies in school. And the second step is putting it into a couple universities and actually getting it accredited, where people that want to become skills coaches or coaches can go to college and spend, their time learning the game and learning the techniques and skills that they need so that they can, come out a better coach and impact more basketball players around the world.
So you said you had 2 NCAA tournaments. You had 2011 in Tucson against Wisconsin, and then in 2012 in Columbus, you got to play Georgetown. Which one was a better atmosphere or a better game that you enjoyed more?
Yeah, so it's funny because when you think about the NCAA tournament when you're a little kid, you think of the March Madness theme song. You think about the bracket filling out. You think about, it's like, and then the problem is when you go there, a lot of the crowds are spread out because you have 1/8 Belmont, 1/8 Wisconsin, 1/8 like San Diego State. Kawhi Leonard played in front of us. 1/8 so you have 8 sections of the crowd that are all these different teams that are playing back to back to back to back. So it wasn't the same atmosphere that I felt as a little kid. To be honest with you, the atmosphere that I liked the most was Selection Sunday. Selection Sunday was unbelievable because you got all of our fan base was in our student center, and we're walking down. It's almost like a little parade, and then you sit in the front row. You're watching the bracket come out, and then when you hear your name called, you just go crazy because you're like, it's almost like at that moment it hits you like we're in the big dance. You know what I mean? Even for us, we were an automatic qualifier, so we knew we were in there, but we were still the anticipation of who you're playing, where you're playing, what seed you get. It makes it so much fun. It's so much there's so much energy in it. The games, I would say the Georgetown game was more fun. Wisconsin, the team we played, it was almost a buzzkill because we were the best three-point shooting team in the country, both my junior and senior year. And Wisconsin was the most boring team in college basketball. They were playing in the 50s or 60s. It was just walk the ball up, run the clock down. So it killed the mood because it wasn't up and down. Georgetown game was actually fun. Georgetown, they started, Otto Porter was their 2 guard. He's 6'8", 6'9", maybe taller. I don't know how tall he is. I was guarding Otto Porter. That's who my matchup was. So think about it. He almost had a foot on me. I'm 5'11". He's, I don't know what he is, but 9, 10. And so we were highly mismatched as far as size goes, and they killed us on the boards, but we were able to shoot threes and hang in there and stuff like that. But Wisconsin game was just so dead because their team was just so boring. Just pass, screen, cut, basically waste 20, 30 seconds and then try to score at the end. So to be honest with you, my most fun game was Duke by far. The atmosphere at Cameron, when you're getting everybody hands out, ooh, it's just the Cameron game was my favorite college game that I ever played in.
So I have 2 questions. One's a classic St. Louis question. What high school did you go to?
I went to Webster Groves, and it was one of those things where I was choosing between some private schools and some public schools. Same exact thing that I talked about in college. So my high school coach, when he took over, his second year as Webster's coach, went 5-17. And this was my, I think, 6th grade year or 7th grade year. So I was dead set on going to a private school. I was going to go to SLU. And then that next year, I think my 7th grade year, maybe they win 17 games. Then my 8th grade year, maybe they win 20 games. And so they had done just enough my 7th and 8th grade year to kind of convince me that they were moving in the right direction. And I loved my buddies that I played with in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We had a team. It's funny because we had 6 players play in my state championship game in 2008. 4 of the 6 were on my 6th, 7th, and 8th grade team. So we were like a family. We had grown up together. So, but yeah, same thing. I was not even going to give Webster a chance because their team was so bad, and I wanted to play college basketball. I wanted to win state championship, and they turned it up around enough. And Jay Blossom, who was the head coach there, who's one of my best friends now, basically did enough good convincing that, hey, listen, I promise you that you can be the last piece of this puzzle that we need to really set this program in the right direction. And so I ended up going there.
I grew up in the Kirkwood area, and if I stayed there for my high school years, I would have gone to Kirkwood. Kirkwood and Webster have a budding rivalry. Huge. The Turkey Day Thanksgiving game. Always remember that. Also, when you go back to St. Louis, what do you miss more about St. Louis? The Ted Drew's ice cream in the summertime or the toasted raviolis?
So I would go a side note. I would go Emo's Pizza more than toasted raviolis, but Ted Drew's ice cream is like, I'm a huge Ted Drew's fan. So I would go number one. I would go the Emo's Pizza, number two Ted Drew's, and then I would go to Toasted Ravs. It's funny, people that aren't from St. Louis don't realize how much we love our food. But I mean, it's that Jason and Brad are always talking about the Chinese food. And then you have, the Riplets chips, you have the drinks, I mean, there's just so many different St. Louis kind of.
Fitz
you got Crown Candy downtown.
Crown
if you
Candy.
want to really get, some old school stuff. So, no, I love St. Louis. I got to spend the last 2 months with my family in St. Louis, which was so nice. It was a hidden blessing, I mean, obviously the virus was so bad to so many people, impacted so many lives, first and foremost, jobs second. But, I hope that people find some hidden blessings. The fact that we got to spend 2 months basically isolated, secluded, hopefully some people went inside, and really found out what made them enjoy stuff that couldn't get taken away. Because I think so many times we put so much focus on things that can get taken away. And so that's, for me, it was, the silver lining was I got to spend time with my family, which was awesome. And it's something that I need to do more of, because that work-life balance doesn't exist in my life. It's work balance. And so it's something that I'll do moving forward. I'll definitely spend more time at home.
Hunter?
All right. So this October, Jacob and I have a planned trip. We're going to Mizzou. We're going to the Mizzou, Georgia game. I have never been to St. Louis. Where's one place that I absolutely cannot miss?
Well, here's what I would tell you. I would say that the places we just name dropped as far as food are some places that you can't miss. And then there's a million other places that outside of that. Like, I mean, if he tells you barbecue, you'll go down to Pappy's downtown.
Pappy's.
I would tell you that the number one thing is, if everything was going well, it would be a St. Louis Cardinals baseball game.
Oh yeah.
To me, that's like it's funny. People are like, who's your favorite NBA team? And I don't have one, because I have players on so many different teams. I grew up a Chicago Bulls fan because of Michael Jordan, but besides cheering for Zach LaVine, I don't really care about the Bulls. Like, I don't care about any teams. I just care about players. But St. Louis Cardinals are like the team. It's just everybody in St. Louis bleeds Cardinal red. So that's what I would say is once this world gets back rolling to the new normal, you got to go to a St. Louis Cardinals game and enjoy the atmosphere of the best fans in baseball.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to tell you, Hunter. Cardinals fans are different out here. Yeah, that or a Blues game if in October when the season rolls around again. But I think hockey's moving theirs. But Blues games are now becoming a lot of fun, because when I was a kid they were fun, but now because they won the cup and all that. Did you have a chance to come back to St. Louis and see the parade or any of that?
No, I watched Game 7. Was the only game I watched all season long. I wanted the Blues to do well, but I just don't really watch hockey. But it was funny because I hadn't watched any games all season long, and for Game 7 in the Stanley Cup, we the first maybe 5-6 minutes, we didn't get the ball out of our zone. They were just wrist shot, slap shot, cross. I'm like, golly, we're gonna get murdered. So I'm over here texting my friends. I'm on a group chat with a bunch of buddies that are real Blues fans, and I'm going, oh, we're getting blown out. What are we doing? I was like, if we don't shoot, we can't score. We didn't even shoot a shot on goal, and our first shot, goal. So then they're all going crazy. I'm going crazy, even though I'm not a Blues fan. Naturally your St. Louis roots take over. And then our second shot, I believe, was a goal as well. So we're up 2-0, and we're getting dominated. I'm talking about they had the ball, they had the puck in our zone for 90% of the first quarter, and I was first period, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how we're up 2-0. I was like, there's no way we're gonna hold on to this. I was being for the first time in my life, I was actually being like on a negative side because I was just watching and I was like, they're dominating the game. And then midway through, we start taking over the game. I'm like, all right, now we're good. Now we're going to win this thing. So it was fun for all my friends and family that actually are real Blues fans. But I was a bandwagon St. Louis person that only showed up for Game 7. So I can't say that I'm a fan.
I had to bust Hunter's chops because Hunter's a big Boston fan all around. Celtics, Patriots, Red Sox, the full 9 yards. And, you know, every single time he played the Patriots just played the Rams in the Super Bowl. And obviously the Rams were from St. Louis, but now they were in Los Angeles. And he was just busting my chops. And then finally the Blues got him in Game 7. And I just busted his chops all the fall.
I mean, it's one of those things at Boston. And again, I love Boston Celtics because of Jason and Shimi Olajay and Taco Fall are all guys that I work with. Gordon Hayward, I've worked with all these guys. But the Patriots, I actually cheered for the Patriots one year when Adrian Claiborne was on their team and they won the championship because he was a high school teammate of mine. But I mean, the Patriots, the only reason they ever even started the run was because they cheated in our Super Bowl game. So for me, just the level of respect is so low for the Patriots just because of the number of scandals that have gone on that have been proven to be, I guess it's one of those things that if you're not cheating, you're not trying. I guess that's what Patriots fans would say, but it's one of those things. The level of respect, Tom Brady's definitely the GOAT. Tom Brady's the GOAT, but to me, like, they had nothing on the greatest show on turf, and it took for them to film our practice to even have a chance.
Nice.
Oh, I've said that several times in our day. I feel attacked.
Oh hush. Oh hush.
So my follow-up question is, how do you train players with such different, skill sets? So how would you differ your training style to a Jason Tatum than like a Mo Bamba?
Completely different. I'm up in Philadelphia right now with Joel, and he is working on a ton of, basically double team stuff in the post because we know in the playoffs teams are going to double team him. And so all he's doing is stuff from like the mid post area and low post area, so he can be a dominant low post and mid post big player. Obviously, we're still making some top of the key threes for pick and pops and stuff like that. But his main go-to stuff is dominate the low post. Jason Tatum, completely opposite. All we're doing is trying to create threes and generate threes from behind three-point line. As you know, being a Celtics fan, we were big in the analytics. Jason last year had a down year for his standards. Some of it was because of the role and the personnel that was on the court with him. But the other reason was he was shooting a lot of inefficient shots. And so this year we've spent a lot of time working on getting to the rim and finishing at the rim and generating more threes and knocking those down. So it's just completely different. It's basically, I reverse engineer. I look at what we need to happen on the court and then reverse engineer it and then work on it so that they get those results when they're out there playing.
So on your Instagram, because you post your training videos, little couple snippets here and there, and like it's you guarding the guys. Which one of the players is like the toughest for you to guard? Out of Zach LaVine, Jason Tatum.
Well, here's the thing. So like yesterday, I'm playing full court one-on-one with Joel, and I beat him the first 2 games. But the rule was you're not allowed to score in the paint. So I was hitting threes. And he was tired. He's just getting back in shape because they had a long hiatus or whatever. And I start talking trash. And then what does he do? He just goes and just bullies me and just blows by me. So Joel's unstoppable. Like even Jason, like there were times where Jason and Joel play one-on-one. Jason gets up, say they're playing to 7. Jason gets up 6-2. As soon as Joel gets the ball back, I mean, no one can stop him. You know what I mean? He's just such a big body and he's so skilled and so talented. That's why he's one of the best players in the world. So Joel's unguardable. But the guys to me, like, see, I think the hardest players to guard are the guys that are like really, really like unpredictable. So like Jordan Clarkson is harder for me to guard than Jason Tatum because I know what's coming for Jason. I've been with him since 13. Like I know when he lets the ball float, how he's going to sidestep, where he's going to sidestep. Doesn't mean I can stop it. He's good enough where I can at least yell like sidestep and try to swipe at it. But the guys like Jordan Clarkson are the guys that are really like shifty. Those are the guys that are unconventional. They're harder to guard for me because for whatever reason, I have such an analytical mind and I've watched so many possessions of Brad and Jason and and Zach and those guys that I know what's coming. And so they might every once in a while throw me off. I might guess wrong, but most of the time, I would say a heavy portion of the time, I know what's coming. It just doesn't mean I can stop it, but at least I can be there to contest, you know? Whereas some of the guys like Jordan Clarkson, he might do something. You're like, what was that? And he's like, I don't know. I'm just reacting. You know what I mean? So those are the guys that are harder to guard for me.
Hunter?
Yeah, so on your Instagram it says Chef Drew, RJ Barrett took an L today and once.
I beat my guys all the time. In one-on-one. And it's because two things. One, it's because I always make sure that the rules favor me. So like if I'm playing against a Joel or a Mo Bamba or somebody that's a big guy, Myers Leonard, I'm always going to say threes are worth 3 points, twos are worth 2, or I'm going to say we're playing ones and twos, so now 3-pointers are worth twice as many because I know that's going to favor me. I'm a better 3-point shooter than any of those guys, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to just shoot threes. Another thing I'm going to do is against big guys, I'm going to say no paint scores, so that way at least it's basically a jump shooting contest. And against the guards, I'll always try, like Jason gets mad at me because I'm up all time in our one-on-one series, and Jason gets mad at me because he's like, you only play me after workouts when I'm dead tired. So I definitely cook the I go the Patriots route where I make it favors me. But, you know, for me, I'm 30 years old now. I'm retired. I've been retired for a long time. So the only reason I play one-on-one is to talk trash. So all I'm looking for is highlights where I can talk trash about the highlight that I made them look stupid, or, you know, win a few spots so that I can let them know that, you know, a short retired white guy, you know, got some points on him. So at this point in my career, it's all about helping them get better. And, you know, there's times where, you know, Joel got mad at me yesterday because I was guarding him a certain way. I was really favoring a certain way that he doesn't like to play. And he was like, guard me straight up, try to stop me. And I was like, bro, I'm just trying to help you get better. And he was like, no, just try to guard me. I'm like, listen, I know that if I just try to guard you, I'm not going to help you out. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to try to be, you know, a little nuance, you know, a little kind of, you know, give you little nuances to kind of focus on so that you can get better. So, yeah, it's all about trash talking these days.
Is Joel a legit trash talker like we hear in the news?
1,000%. Yeah, he took some bad losses in ping pong yesterday, and we had to play 100 games because he couldn't win. So, yeah, no, it's like that. A lot of these guys, though. I mean, there's a lot of these guys, like, that's why all my clients are obsessed with video games, because they can't stand losing anything. You know what I mean? Like, there's an Unseen Hours video online where you can see Joel and I playing Monopoly, and it's like 3 or 4 times on camera that he's cheating. Like, with a camera on him, he's still cheating. Like, and the problem is I'm just as bad. So I gave the Patriots trouble, but we all do the same thing. We always, you know, change everything, you know, in ping pong. Oh, I'm not ready. I was scratching my face. It was, you know, like it's a nonstop competition, but that's what drives these guys, is they're so competitive and they really want to be the best at anything they do. It's why I don't play video games. I never even had I think the last thing that I owned was a Game Boy, not even color. I owned a Game Boy black and white back in the day. So yeah, that's it. So I'm old school. I don't play video games because I suck at video games, and you know, I try to focus on things that I can do. But that's part of the competitive nature that drives these players to be so successful. Is they don't want anybody to have anything over them. You know.
So obviously, I signed up for your text message system because last summer I was helping train my brother, in a sense of, because he wanted to try out for the high school team, and he's always wanted to. He was good enough. It's just in Texas for some reason. It's weird. Texas is weird, the way he told me. But how much did that Jordan documentary, I'm kind of going back for it, but obviously I signed up and you did a full thing about the Jordan, you break down Jordan's film. How much of The Last Dance kind of opened your eyes, and what have you learned going back watching Michael Jordan's game and breaking it down?
I'm the biggest Michael Jordan fan, so there wasn't much new that I learned, to be honest with you. But I liked the beginning stuff. I knew everything about him as far as his, you know, his younger life and his career. I knew about Scotty. I've worked with Scotty. You know, I've seen Dennis Rodman stuff. I've done that stuff. So for me, episode 7 was when it all started. Like, I love that's when some people were like, oh, he's too hard on his teammates. But I just loved seeing that side. But I also loved when you saw how it still bothers him to this day. Like, the one thing that I think that if I took away anything, It was that he still to this day holds grudges. And it was like
Isaiah Thomas.
not in a good way, but he was so hyper competitive that he really didn't have an off switch. Like I know that like there was a quote in there where I think Roy Williams said like, he was one of the only guys that had an on and off switch, but he never turned it off. But like you can see that like to this day he still carries like I don't know what the right word is, but he still carries like a heavy burden on his heart. So like if anybody said one thing about him, it was like for the rest of your life, it was like I'm going at you, I'm attacking that. And it's like that's what made him so great, but also it made him so miserable as well, like off the court. So it's one of those things where I'm writing a book right now that has nothing to do with basketball. It's all on mindset and how to like basically the working title is stop BSing yourself. Like all the lies we tell ourselves, I want to get in shape, but then you eat a dessert, I want to get in shape and you slack off on your push-ups and like, you're only cheating yourself. And so I always wondered. And so I started studying like the best of the best. How do they get over those humps? How does it become non-negotiable? How do they get to the next level and the next level? And then how do they become the best in the world and still chase something that's not even above them? Like how do you chase something that's not there? And that's what those guys like MJ and Tiger Woods, you saw how big of a downfall he had when he went through his, stuff off the court, off the course. You look at, a ton of people, Lance Armstrong, best biker in the world, crash. I mean, you're talking about like, there's a very bad track record. Michael Phelps, bang. Like if you're the best at anything, it takes like an obsession that almost drives you in a negative way off the court to like have that same personality. It's something I struggled with because my life is all I do is I nitpick. That's what my job is. I go in and find weaknesses and try to change these people. Well, I can't let that trickle in my off-court life. I can't have, hey, Mom, how are you doing? I love you. Hey, by the way, I just saw something that that wouldn't be a very healthy relationship. And so I think that some of these guys just don't have an off switch anywhere in their life, which makes them amazing on, the court or the field, but it drives them insane off of it.
So Hunter, ask whatever question you want. We're going to ask maybe a couple more final questions and we'll let you go and
cool.
Get back to work with Joel.
Yeah, I was about to say, we'd love to have a copy of that book, but I just lost my train of thought.
Come on, Hunter.
Okay. So the NBA has a new 22-team playoff format. How interested are you in it that, I would assume that you have players in those teams that are like scratching to get in, but also for guys like Jason Tatum and Embiid who are actually playing against each other in the first round, who do you think can go the furthest and why?
Yeah, I was talking about that with some of my clients, as far as like, who do you think this benefits the most? I mean, the Clippers, Kawhi was banged up, Paul George is banged up. They get fully healthy. The Blazers, if they can sneak in at the 8 seed, that is going to be one heck of a playoff series. The Blazers with a healthy Nurk and they have a couple people come. Collins is coming back. They have, all this kind of stuff.
Going to be rested.
Yeah, so they're gonna have their whole team back. If they can become the 9 seed and they're playing against Memphis as the 8 seed, they could win that game and then play against LeBron and them. And then you got guys like Houston, like James Harden and Russell Westbrook are a different breed of workers. They work. So they both, like James Harden's lost a ton of weight. I don't know if you saw the pictures of him running up hills every day. And Russ has been working out. So guys like that normally break down, like James has broke down every year in the playoffs. Those are the guys that I think are going to benefit. I'm hoping, like I said, like Joel is, normally playoffs he's been worn down and now him and Ben Simmons are healthy. I think really there's a lot of teams that you could say it benefits from, but I think for the first time ever, now it's going to be weird without the crowd. It's going to be weird with them living in a bubble for 7 weeks before they can even see their family. There's going to be a lot of kind of weird things because people might not be as mentally sharp as they've been. But for the first time ever, we're really going to get to see on a neutral court with everybody healthy who's the best team. So there's no home court advantage. The refs. I really think we've talked about this. I was talking about this with one of my clients the other day. I don't think the refs are going to be as heavily favored as normal. Like even if you don't realize it, sometimes you might call a call and you hear the from the home court, and it makes you think twice about that next call. But now with nobody in the gym, if you call a bad call, it's going to look very obvious that it was a bad call. You know what I mean? Because everyone's going to look at you like, what? So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. But I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see how I think there's going to be still tweaks and changes. I don't think the players are going to be able to stay in a bubble for 7 weeks without seeing their family and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But, you know, I'm excited that basketball's back, and like every other basketball fan, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. Definitely is a weird dynamic that's going to be going on, but it'll be one that, you know, is going to be it's going to allow them to test some things that moving forward they can see if it worked or didn't work.
Yeah, me and going back to the ref thing, me and Hunter were intramural refs, and
I bet you guys are trash, just like all intramural refs. I didn't realize how hard it was to referee until I refereed before I was training. I was at the facility that I was using. I would fill in refs if refs couldn't show up, and
it's hard.
I don't know how many times I had the whistle in my mouth and somebody'd go up and kind of get bumped a little bit but not finish it, and they would be like, oh, and I would pull out my whistle and be like, toughen up, man, finish that. You should have finished that. But
yes.
I'm telling little fifth graders, like, finish that shit. Like, I'm like, oh, my fault. I didn't mean to say it. Like, I'm just like, I can't imagine, like, when you're talking about the best players in the world, because what happens is you just start watching the game, and then, like, you start anticipating calls. So sometimes I blow the whistle and be like, oh, shit, that was the wrong call. But you already blew the whistle. You can't look like an idiot. And other times I would be telling them, like, toughen up. Like, no, don't worry about that. Like, I know it's a foul, but keep playing. And they're like, well, then call it, you know? So
there's been so many times where we're reffing intramurals, and just like I've done that same instance. Some kid will try to drive in and he'll miss. He'll look at me because there was contact, and I was like, dude, you got to make that. And Hunter's favorite thing is, dude, just be better.
Be better. Like, what do you want from me? As I'll say, a lot of times you get so used to calling your own fouls, or like playing, you know, street ball, where you can get tackled, you make the layup, and then you just bully and get in their face. Like, you can't stop me. And that's what I'm used to. So when someone's like going up and like fouling, I'm not used to like being, oh, foul. Like, no, you don't call fouls. Like, that's just the way I'm from. So like, foul isn't a word when we're playing basketball. That's, oh, you gonna stop me? All right, try and tackle me again. I'm gonna bully you.
Yes.
So that's one thing that's different than, you know, being a ref. That's harder.
My final question is, obviously the NBA is looking to transition to a December start, which I think they were looking at it for a while. How does that affect Pure Sweat in terms of, like, because you do summer camps and you work with players in the summer, how is that going to be changing now? Because now you have athletes kind of all of a sudden the training aspect was in the summer, but now you're transitioning into now looking at October and the draft is different. And
it'll definitely, I don't know how it'll all play out with my calendar, but it'll definitely change a little bit. I mean, I used to do a ton of fall, like I used to do a world tour every fall. Now it might be, and I can't really do a world tour during the summer because the summer is like playoff time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see what schedule they land on. It'll definitely impact me, but like anything else, it's one of those things where you just kind of have to, you know, go with the flow. I think that I'm not one of those people that ever stresses about anything. Like, I just, you make pivots, you know what I mean? There's some people that have great strategies, but they don't have the ability to pivot. And those are the people that end up like Blockbuster, out of business. You know what I mean? So that's what you have to do. So I'm basically just going to wait to see how it plays out. And then once it plays out, then I'll make my adjustments, pivot to a new, you know, kind of strategy and new calendar, and go from there.
Well, Hunter, you got anything else? Because I have nothing else to ask.
Final question. When taking on new clients, how do you kind of organize yourself to be able to train them and make them better?
Yeah, I mean, I go through like just like you would in business, I go through a SWOT analysis. So I'll break down all their film. I'll put it into a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths and weaknesses, everybody knows what those are. Opportunities are where can we grow and expand their game. Opportunities to like improve their game. Threats, things that can keep them from playing more minutes, getting a starting job, things that could hurt them from getting a contract that they want, etc. And once we do that, I'll sit down with the player. Before I show them my plan, I'll ask them, you know, their plan. I'll basically say, what do you want to work on? Then I'll take them. I'll say, what are some of your strengths? What are some of your weaknesses? What are some of your opportunities to grow? What are some of your threats? And then I guide them to the plan. So I don't actually do it. I have the plan already done, but then I just let them feel like it's their plan. So I'll ask them questions, and that questions direct them to get to the answers that we want. And then we boil it down to 3 things that we're going to work on. And once we lock in on 3 things, maybe it's only 1 thing we work on all off season. Maybe it's 2, but maximum 3 things. We get to work on those things, add things to their game, and they become a improved player the next season. So secret sauce is simplifying everything and then also prioritizing everything. If you don't prioritize, then you don't know if you're working on the right stuff. If you don't simplify, you could be working on too much stuff. And as you know, if you're working on too many things at once, you can't get great at anything, and that doesn't lead to really an improved game.
So thank you for coming on. We have no more questions, obviously. We appreciate you taking time out of your day, coming on, talking with us. We really appreciate it. Love that we could talk some hoops and talk about some guys. And best of luck to you, and best of luck to your players as well. And keep grinding out there. You got fans over here, and we appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, no doubt. No, I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
Thank you.